This is Kelly for paperbeadrollers.com, and today I'm announcing a new addition to our line of paper bead rollers. This new double pin bead roller opens up the door to several new kinds of beads. Let's get started. This is the Double Pin Paper Bead Roller. It's made with a 3/4 inch round handle, grooved and coated to be washable, just like our other bead rollers. Right now, I'm only offering the 3/32 inch size, which is the size of the red rollers. Now, the big difference between this and the existing red roller is that this bead roller has 2 slotted pins. One pin is 1 inch long and the other is about 3/4 inches long. Now, why are the pins different lengths? Great question. I will show you right now. The supplies you'll need to make these beads are really just your standard paper beading supplies. Scissors, glue, and I'm just using white glue in this needle tip bottle, which you can get at our website, paperbeadrollers.com, some diamond glaze or other hardening glaze, and a paintbrush. You'll also need a tray for your glaze and a styrofoam block and some skewers to hold the beads while they're glazed. Now, if you use the dipping method to glaze your beads, I'm not sure it's going to work well with this style of bead, although I'd love to hear from anyone who tries it. This first style of bead is called the open teardrop. For this, we'll use 2 strips of paper. They're both 1/4 inch by 11 inches long. Now, if you own the standard triangle paper bead digital download pack, you have this strip in there. If not, you can just cut a basic strip that's 1/4 inch wide at the top and goes down 11 inches to a point. One of these strips will make the inside of our bead and one will be the outside. I'm going to use the bronze metallic strip for the inside of my bead. The inside gets rolled on the longer pin. Just slide the wide part of this paper strip into the slot and roll as normal. Now, I dipped the edges of this strip into a matching metallic ink pad because we will be seeing the side of the bead and therefore the cut edges. Glue the end down, and you may want to wait a minute until the glue dries so that your bead stays stable as you wrap the second strip. I'm going to push this bead down towards the bottom of the pin, but not quite touching the wood handle so that I'm able to get my finger down under there to pull it off later. The pattern strip will be the outside of this new bead. I'm going to thread it into my short pin. I'll wrap it around the gold bead, and this is what creates the teardrop shape. Now, you do need to keep steady pressure on this so that it creates a nice teardrop shape. Be careful with your centering on this bead. The shape of the strip is going to make each side feel a little bit off, so try to keep it centered. When you get to the end, tack it down with glue like normal. I like to put glue a little further up the strip than I normally do just to make sure it's really secure. Now, when you slide this bead off of your roller, carefully slide both sides off evenly. Because I didn't put glue on the outside of the metallic bead before I wrapped the second strip around it, I'm able to slip it right out of the teardrop. I could use the bead just like this, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and glue my bead back in place. I'll just put a little glue right in there and pop the bead back in. Now, I have tried putting glue on the inside bead before I wrap the second strip, and it certainly does work. But if you do that, you'll need to leave the final wrapped bead on the tool and let it set up before you try to pull it off, or it could fall apart. Now we're going to do that same open teardrop bead, but instead of using triangle-shaped strips, we're going to use rectangle strips. Now, these strips are 1/2 inch each, and they're about 11 inches long. We're going to follow the same method I did for the last bead. Wrap the first bead on the long pin. Now, you can see why we use the long pin for this. It's because we're wrapping the bead and we don't want the second pin getting in our way. Glue down the end and slide it down toward the bottom of the pin. Now slide the second strip into the short pin. Start wrapping, keeping the edges even. Add glue to pin down the end. Now you have a bead with just a very small opening at the top of the teardrop. Basically, it's a double hole bead, and it almost looks like one piece of paper was used. In fact, if you have longer strips of paper that you're working with, or you want to do a smaller inside bead, you can just use one strip and do the inside and outside of this bead in a continuous strip. Again, I'm going to glue this bead down after I get it off the tool. And here you go, 2 different looking beads using the same technique. Let's try another variation. Okay, now for a little twist. We're gonna roll the curled open drop bead. This one's actually my favorite. It works just like the drop bead, but it just has this one little twist, the little curl at the top. I'll roll the inside bead like usual on the long pin. Glue down the tip. And slide it down towards the handle. Now this next step begins a little differently, and this can be tricky the first couple of times you do it. Slide the strip onto the short pin, but you're going to face the pattern the wrong way. Now you'll need to put your finger in place to hold the strip into the slot so that it doesn't move, especially if your paper is thicker. We're going to angle the strip between the bead and the pin and slide it right through there. Now wrap the strip around the bead with the pattern facing out, so you're going to move the opposite direction. And continue wrapping as normal. So doing that little backwards twist gives you a cute little curl at the top of your drop bead. It's so fancy. And it gives you a great place to string the bead. Now the last bead I'll show you in this video is pretty tame in comparison, but still beautiful. For this bead, I'll take a 1/2 inch by 11 inch strip and wrap it around both pins. I'm not putting any other beads on this, just straight on wrapping it. It creates this beautiful curved side bead. Now this is perfect because you have this nice flat opening. So if you're using a wide piece of leather or woven rope or cloth as your stringing material, this bead fits on perfectly. Now glazing these beads is crucial because they're more delicate than a normal paper bead. There are also a couple of things to watch out for. I'm going to go ahead and put some diamond glaze into my paint tray. And I'm going to use a pretty small paintbrush for this because I want to make sure I get the glaze down into all of the nooks and crannies of the bead. However, I can't let it collect there. If the glaze builds up too much in the cracks, it will not look good when the bead dries. So use your paintbrush to put the glaze right where you need it. If you're having trouble clearing the glaze out of certain areas of the bead, the point of a toothpick works fine. When glazing the flat beads or the open drop beads without a bead inside, make sure that you coat the inside of the bead with glaze. When glazing the flat beads, be sure to coat the inside of the bead with glaze. These beads will crush easily if you don't do a very good job of coating both sides with several layers of the hardening glaze. Well, I hope you've had as much fun as I have with the Double Pin Bead Roller. Be sure to join us in the Paper Bead Fanatics Facebook group so you can share your projects and mingle with all of the other paper bead lovers out there. Like this video and subscribe to the channel because there is more paper beading goodness on the way. Happy rolling!